Hello, everyone. Welcome to your Raleigh Metro SHRM Wellness blog. My name is Georgia Homsany. I am the owner of Daily Dose Wellness, and I spearhead the wellness blog here for our Raleigh chapter. And for those of you new to SHRM or new to the wellness blog, we started doing the blog early in 2021 to really offer some different articles and insights on either your personal well-being or what you can be doing inside your organization to promote positive, healthy living for your employees. So typically, these blogs are written articles that we distribute monthly through our newsletter. But every now and again, I like to throw in some video content and bring in another provider that's within the industry. So today I have Jess Jones, who is part of Northstar EAP. And the topic for this month is going to be, are you getting the most out of your EAP? Now, this could be for companies that already have an EAP in place with their insurance company, or it could be a company that doesn't have an EAP, but is a little bit curious about them or looking to provide some different wellness resources to their employees. And we're going to talk through the differences between EAPs and wellness programs in general. So with that, I would love to welcome Jess to the screen. Hello, Jess.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining us. So just to give our readers a little bit of background, can you tell us how you got started in this industry and a little bit about what Northstar does specifically?
Sure. So Northstar EAP has been around for almost 20 years. I got involved more recently, and I work with a great team that really based out of Michigan, but now is nationwide and even international. I will say that is partly to do with COVID, but we are a standalone EAP providing short-term solution-based counseling and therapy and EAP services, along with other services to all of our direct company partners.
Okay, great. So let's talk about EAPs in general, because is there just one straight EAP that you would get with your insurance plan, or how would a company go about navigating what types of EAPs are available?
This is a great question. So this kind of gets right to the heart here of what we are always discussing with our partners. And so I think, earlier we were speaking and talking about any EAP is better than no EAP. And I do agree with that, because the awareness around utilizing an EAP, reducing stigma of, accessing mental health services, these are all wonderful things. And so if you have an EAP already, gold star for you, that's a step in the right direction. Where we start to differentiate would be in regards to what, again, we consider what Northstar is, a standalone EAP versus an EAP born from insurance. Two different animals. And part of the reasoning would be maybe in some of the journey, the client journey that our HR friends have even experienced or have had for themselves or have heard feedback in regards to. So if we're using an EAP that is sometimes what we call like a large corporate or a third-party EAP. So they have oftentimes an affiliation with an insurance company, and they are an add-on or a low-cost or no-cost service that your benefit plan has provided in sort of conjunction with what they're already offering you for the health insurance. So when you access that as a client, very often you're being put on a call line, you're being put on hold, you have to get an authorization number. They will hand you a list or email you a list of service providers that you, as the person dealing with the challenge, barrier, or issue, need to call. We have recorded that this journey often takes, on the short end, 7 days, on the long end, up to 30 days. So 1 to 4 weeks in regards to accessing your EAP counselor and the person that's actually going to give you help and services. So we are always trying to mitigate, remove barriers, remove challenges, and make it as easy as possible at Northstar specifically for our clients, the employee, to directly access those services and the counselor and the help they need as soon as possible. So that is one very large component. The other component that I'll speak to really quickly here would be when you actually then go through that process with the service provider with a large EAP that might be affiliated with an insurance company. Very often there needs to be diagnosis codes, a lot of paperwork that's filed, and it's very time intensive, sometimes for the employee, very much so for the counselor. And so it just becomes a cumbersome process where they need to repeat the process over and over to kind of get to the solution and get to the fix that they're looking for. Where we really have tried to differentiate is, one, we directly take that intake in at Northstar EAP, and it is sent directly to the therapist or counselor, who immediately within 1 to 3 days is scheduling with the employee. So it's a seamless process. The employee has one intake, and immediately the response comes from a counselor network. We have our own counselor network we've curated at Northstar EAP. So that's a system we built that is very different from the large corporate EAPs. The other piece of this on the backside of everything, and I know that in the HR world and just generally, we all love to talk about data. Data tells the story. And so we are big on data at Northstar EAP, and we want to provide that back for our partners. And what you're not getting with an EAP that creates the authorization process and the lengthy service delays is the attrition and the abandonment rate of an employee who never actually follows through with getting the help that they asked for to begin with. And what's so, I think, on a human level, difficult for us and troubling is that that person contacted EAP for a reason, right? Like, even from the wellness side of the world, step one very often is the most difficult. Deciding to make the change in your life is the one that is so crucial. And so from there, you need it to be easy, accessible, all fall into place, because that's where you're going to get the biggest return personally and professionally.
Right.
So very long answer, but navigation that we run through almost daily.
So let me get this straight. An employee, if they utilize their EAP network, it could take 4 weeks for a counselor to call them back.
Absolutely. And again, no fault of the counselor, no fault of the employee. The process itself, because it needs to be so specific and prescribed, because it's from a healthcare world, and that's yuck, right? Like we wish that weren't the case, but you can see where we've all had those interactions, even in our own visits to doctors' offices or trying to fill a prescription or whatever the case might be. There's bureaucracy. And that's where I feel like some of us, your group, our group, we're trying to do away with that bureaucracy and really get to the solutions.
Right. Yeah. And that's alarming, because I think the reality is that a lot of people only will seek out help when things are really dire. So if you think about, someone that might proactively be calling a counselor because they want to work through some things that are bothering them, okay, 4 weeks may not be that terrible. It still seems long to me. Mm-hmm. But think about the majority of people that are probably calling those hotlines are at their wit's end. So if now they're saying, okay, we can't get back to you, even if for 7 days, if you're at the point of breaking, it's just not quick enough, unfortunately. And I imagine, to your point about the data, they're losing a lot of people that are just giving up. Oh, this is going to take too long. I can't get the help I need. Forget it. And then what is the company even paying for, if they are paying for this EAP, if people aren't utilizing it?
Absolutely. And so where we've worked with other HR partners throughout the country, one of the homework items we joke with our HR partners is we say, you go ahead and go try your EAP. That is the best way to understand the functionality. Mm-hmm. And if it's working, great, set it and forget it. That is absolutely fine. What we want them to understand is, if you're going through that process and you're running up against those barriers or walls, and actually we just signed a partner this past year, a local company that their HR person said to us, we have very low utilization. No one's really using the EAP service. I'm not even sure we need it. I'm not even sure we want to switch. Kind of went back and forth, and it was a slow onboarding, and that was perfectly fine. And we just said, well, the thing is, we actually have your employees calling us like kind of on a backwards way to say, by chance, are you taking us? And so we knew the employees were asking for it. They just weren't having success with connecting with the help they needed. We signed them on, and their utilization was extremely high. To say, yes, maybe there was some built up, pent up energy that the employees definitely wanted to connect with EAP. They definitely are utilizing it, and they are where they should be. There should always be a healthy range of utilization. And also, what we all know to be true in HR is it's not what our employees are always telling us, it's actions and what they're doing.
Right.
And that's what
speaks. Right. Yeah, I think there's no doubt that there's definitely a need for this, but it's how do we provide those resources and make it easily accessible for employees to access. So I know often I'll reach out to companies and I'll say, hey, do you have a wellness program? And they'll say, yeah, we have an EAP. And if I go to employees often and say, hey, does your company offer any wellness resources? They'll say, I think there's something, but I don't know what. So if you think about the communication piece and just kind of moving into best practices, how can a company make sure that they're communicating out these resources and the tracking component of it to make sure that they are being utilized? And if not, what's a better way that we can pivot and offer something that they would be taking advantage of?
Definitely. And I think, as with all things, it comes down to communication, but also having a partner that you can rely on. So again, you know, from your side of it, one, EAP is not wellness and wellness is not EAP. They complement each other beautifully and should be used with a team approach and be available for your employees. There's complete ROI in investing in both of those tools and resources, and they're not one and the same. That's why there's Georgia and there's Jess, two different entities here. But with that, what I would also say is, I think you had commented, said, you know, what can the employer or HR do to help encourage an employee to use these services? That's a team approach. We completely also know that those in HR are wildly busy, if not, you know, they're more busy than ever right now. So what we try to do, and I know you do too as well, with your wellness approaches, we want to make that turnkey and really easy for the employer. So helping them market, helping give them tools and resources and options and marketing and promotions that can encourage engagement and employees to seek that care and know it's available for them and within their company. Right. Also recognizing company culture, that's huge, that's big. And again, what our handbook says and what we do in practice, that's your culture. So really knowing if they're shift workers, then you need to speak to every single shift, right? Every single group that comes in throughout the night, throughout the day, throughout the weekend. We need to know if they're in a financial industry or if they're in a people-centric industry, nonprofit versus for-profit, and understanding the culture of that company so that we can communicate correctly, so that they know all the resources available, because it becomes so much more valuable when they know, yes, we have a wellness program and this is being utilized, or they can refer their coworker to it. Or yes, we have an EAP and I used it last year. I'm feeling great this year. Not necessary, but we know what we have available. And sometimes just even knowing the safety net that is there is so, that gives you security, right? And it shows that the employer cares about employees too. And I would take that, again, that's a check for the company that they're doing a lot of things correctly.
Right. And I think you nailed it when you said that HR people often don't have the time. And I think often that's where this is falling to the wayside, not because people don't care, but where does wellness and EAPs, where do they fall in the priority of companies? Mm-hmm. And often there may not be someone dedicated to looking at the analytics behind utilization or determining what we'd be doing beyond just the generic EAP hotline that our insurance companies are providing. So I think as we're starting to move into 2022, anyone watching this, you know, perhaps that is a conversation you're having with your management team. Hey, we need a person to at least carve out a portion of their time to actually be analyzing this if they're not going to be working with a company like Northstar or Daily Dose that will take that off their plate for them.
Definitely. Definitely.
I know that one thing that one best practice, at least we have with our programs, is integrating it into the workday. So something else I try to get our companies to think about is someone going to take the time to call a hotline or do a workout class after work? Possibly. But a lot of times at the end of the workday, people are going home. They just want to relax. They just want to cook dinner, take care of the kids. So really trying to think about how you as a company can integrate more wellness activities during the workday. That way people aren't seeing it as something additional they have to do after they work a full day.
Yep, I totally agree. And I think that those of us that have lived those career lives know that there is a lot of time in the day. I would always advocate too that, very often where I've worked, there would be lunch hour programs, and that's fantastic. Again, always better to have something than nothing.
Yes.
The best ones were the ones that they took place at 4 or 3:30. And then, yes, you had a few extra minutes in your day, or even the morning programs that were available first thing in the morning as you start the day. We all know that we're so much more energetic after that walk, after the talk, after the inspiring conversation that we had with someone. So whether it's wellness, whether it's EAP, whether it's a webinar, whatever the case might be, you always kind of have that energy right after, and that can apply to your work. So it's all a benefit and it's all related. And I think, again, that's where we've, come to know you and have that partnership to agree that the EAP and the wellness are such a complementary piece. Of course, complementary to a health plan that you would have for your employees at large scale.
Right.
So it all works together to help your team be, again, productive and both healthy, mentally, physically. It's all related.
Right. So let's talk about the investment behind this and from an ROI standpoint, because I'm sure this is another hurdle that HR runs into when they say, hey, we have an EAP, but we just listened to this talk from Georgia and Jess and realized we need to be doing more. How do you justify that to management to say, hey, we want to invest X per employee per month or X for this webinar series? And they come back and say, great, what are we going to get out of it? Or how is this going to affect the bottom line?
Yep, absolutely. So I think one, it's starting again with that baseline to know, do you currently have an EAP? Do you currently have a wellness plan? If so, is it working? Is it not? If not, we're exploring options, getting proposals and understanding the cost involved for these additional items that are outside of the current benefit plan. That's completely fair. And ultimately, whether you are paying or not for your EAP or your wellness program, if it's not working, then really there was no point in instituting it. And so time versus money, of course, right? So there's always that factor to consider. I think also this is where you can use quick pulse surveys with your employees. Just reading recently how feedback and listening and active listening with our employee groups is one of the most important things we can be doing right now, especially with, the term, the great resignation flying around out there. We definitely want to be cognizant of keeping our really good people. And so investing in them. The stats show time and time again that investment is always brought back to you tenfold. I always think to come from the angle of the gloom and doom of, again, having our employers know and understand that this is money spent in the right direction, and the money that can be spent in the wrong direction, whether it's even just searching for a new position or dealing with employee issues that EAP could have gotten ahead of, and you never would have gone down the difficult or road with legal issues or anything along those lines. That's all avoidable very often if you have a working EAP partner. So again, you can kind of look at it two different ways, but we're always happy to help our HR partners be advocates if that's what they want to invest in and choose to, because we know very often it's kind of like you have to go up that food chain and bring it to leadership and know if it's a right fit for your company culture. And if so, then it becomes an easier conversation, but the investment pays for itself very quickly, as it does with wellness too. It's looking at every dollar spent is really saving you on the backside in so many ways.
Right. Yeah. And I think the obvious would be lower healthcare costs over time if your employees are healthier. But even just thinking about the retention component, which is such a hot topic these days, retaining a current employee is so much less expensive than losing that employee and having to maybe hire an executive search firm to refill that position, and then all the training that goes into developing that person over time, as opposed to just keeping your current staff happy. So how do you do that? I mean, I love the idea of surveys. We do that a lot at Daily Dose, really to just talk to your people. Yeah. What do they want? And because that's the other thing I've noticed is that it's not the same for every company. We have some companies that love the virtual lunch and learns we do, but other companies, they want in person. Yep. If companies are starting to do that again. So really getting a gut check on what your staff wants. And I've been encouraging more people that I talk to form a wellness committee if you don't have one already. Mm-hmm. Take that off of HR's plate and let the employees become invested directly in it and come to you with what they want to be doing. And that really gives them a sense of ownership, and it saves you time because you don't have to resource that as the HR person.
Yep, absolutely. Another program we run that has been popular, especially the last year and a half, is HR for HR, because that's the person that doesn't have an HR person to support them. But we have a team. Yeah, HR professionals, decades of experience. And so we really try to wear that hat and be empathetic and understand the challenges that they're facing, whether they're one of one or they're a small team or a small shop or other duties as assigned. It's kind of understanding the role they play and where they sit. And they're always trying to weigh both sides there. They need to be cognizant of both. And so it's a difficult role. And I know your goal and our goal always is to make it easier for them.
Exactly. Well, any last thoughts on EAPs or things that our members should be thinking about? Closing remarks.
No, again, I just encourage, it's a great team approach as wellness and EAP together. And we're happy to help create proposals very simply for anybody that's just interested and curious to learn more about what we would offer through EAP. But it's a really great item to be aware of right now. It's trending in terms of health benefit, or in terms of employee benefits, the wellness and mental health availability for people. So it's definitely topical and relevant and important, especially, as we kind of come out of this COVID and into a new normal, really. So that's what's exciting is we get to chart our own path with some of this. And I think that the ones that are investing and being proactive instead of reactive are definitely going to come out ahead.
Yeah. So I think just asking yourselves that question, is my EAP working for my company? And you may not know the answer, but maybe trying to spend some time with the necessary people at the company to evaluate that, to see if maybe working with someone like a Northstar or researching other wellness resources to add on to the EAP, or even forming a wellness committee, like we said. What else can you be doing so that you can answer that question? Is whatever we have in place working for us? And really, that's going to make you shine as an HR person, that you're able to take that to leadership and say, hey, we're doing this program and the utilization is so low, so let's shift resources into something that is going to be more proactive and help us with things like retention and healthcare costs.
Great.
All right. Well, if you would like to reach out to Jess, feel free at Northstar. You can also reach out to myself. I'm happy to put you in touch with Jess or let you know what Daily Dose does. So on behalf of the Raleigh Metro SHRM Wellness Blog, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everyone.